the next speakers for our session. So let me see if we have the third speaker here. There you are, Renaud. Okay,
Hey.
awesome.
Hey
So
guys.
in this panel discussion, we're going to be talking about sourcing masks and other medical devices from China specifically. And that is, of course, such a relevant topic nowadays because so many people are trying to import these products, and there's so many regulations and things are changing almost on a daily basis. It's almost difficult to keep track with what's going on. So I brought in here three experts that have really been doing a lot of research into this segment, and they've been processing orders for clients overseas. And so before we get into the questions, why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background and how you work with importers? Ash, do you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. So thank you, Megla, for having me, first of all. My name is Ash Monga. I run a company called IMEX Sourcing Services. We're based out of Guangzhou. Been living in China for the last 11 years now. And basically, we are a fully outsourced supply chain management company. So we take over the whole process, right, from finding the factories to doing the contracts, new product development work as well, production management, and a little bit of logistics as well. And yeah, PPE is something like everyone else we got into over the last 12 weeks or so. All of a sudden, we had this influx of inquiries, everyone wanting to bring in masks and ventilators and, anything and everything that has anything to do with COVID. And having said that, last 12 months, it's completely, taken all our time and energy. We've been working weekends, 12 hours a day, because the pace of everything is so fast and the regulations are changing every day. So I hope I can bring in some value today.
Awesome. Mike, what about you?
Okay, thanks, Megla. Michael Michelini. Michael, I do a lot of things, honestly, but podcaster, blogger at Global from Asia, and do a lot of cross-border trade within our community. And just like Ash and many others, thrown into this PPE world. And it's been on the back burner for a long time, but launched a group buy site called loadpipe.com, where we're working with people to consolidate smaller wholesale orders to help them buy from factories in China. So it's been a like Ash, 12-hour or more days. It's and I'm freezing cold in North China. It's record cold in late April. I have to wear a jacket inside. There's no internal heating. So just to make it more fun.
Renaud, how about you?
Hi. So hi everybody. My name is Renaud Anjoran. I set up my company Sophist in 2006, and we work mostly with companies that develop their own products and that need to set up their own supply chain with transparency and to keep their supply chain under control, basically. So this involves a lot of work from project management on the orders, on the development, some of the R&D work, the component selection, the prototyping, preparing for pre-production, and so on. So a lot of different things also. We've been doing product inspections since the beginning. So we've been checking a lot of these PPs over the years without really ever going very deep into it. But then we got so many inquiries recently that we had to go really deep into it. Not many factory audits, because most of the manufacturers refuse it, right, except for very large orders. But then a lot of other verification kind of work.
Right. So Renaud, let's start with you. What is the current situation in China in terms of production of these products? So there's so many different products like masks and testing equipments and ventilators and other equipment. So can you just give like an overview of what you're seeing out there in terms of manufacturing of these different types of products?
Sure. So I'm just going to talk about China, right? Because
yes,
the situation is different in other countries. Some of them restrict exports and so on. In China, so you have some of the PPEs are really on the open market and are very hot commodities. such as masks and respirators, hand detergent, goggles, gowns, and so on. Some of them are restricted to a government business, like the test kits. Some of them are also restricted to export, like ICU equipment and things like that. Okay, so it's a very wide range of products. And the problem is there's huge demand. Supply has not caught up with demand yet. So you have the supply side and the buy side, and both of them are creating problems, basically. The buy side is you have a lot of uneducated buyers who come on the market, need something very fast, very often without doing all the verifications necessary and not aware of what they should be checking. And on the selling side, you have a lot of new entrants that jumped on this opportunity in February, March, April, often without actually filling all the paperwork that they should to be certified, to have their product certified. And they, I mean, they're printing money. That's what they say in China. You know, this is like printing money. So they're enjoying it as much as they can because they know that the economy is not going to be very good this year. And once the PPE craze, the gold rush is over, they may have, you know, some hard times. So they're enjoying it, but they make it very hard for the buyers. They're very inflexible, and we have never seen anything like that before.
Wow, right. Mike, are you seeing something similar? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I talked to some people and they feel like it's the new fidget spinner or the new, the new Bitcoin. You know, there's all these opportunists just flooding in, like Renaud said, that there's a whole mix, of course, it's very sad because there's people that desperately need this product, governments, hospitals, medical groups. But of course, there's these traders, opportunists, entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call them, both. Of course, in the China supply side, but also on the buy side, it's just creating a lot of chaos and people just trying to take one, maybe they don't have a job, maybe like their whole factory switched to this product line, or on the buy side they are just trying to get into WeChat groups, Facebook groups, just trying to get into this space. And then people like us, even these experts on this panel, they're experts in quality control and sourcing, but nobody's been 100% specialized. Of course, maybe not nobody, but we're all learning. Everybody's learning. So it's just chaos. Yeah, I mean, literally the shipping rates are going up tomorrow again for some stuff we're working on. It's just insanity. Everybody's just jumping into this.
Right. Ash, what about you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think Renaud described the market pretty well. Whenever something like this happens, like Mike mentioned the fidget spinners or the hoverboards back in the day. So 85% of the factories in China are essentially assembly factories. So they're just getting in the components, assembling the product and shipping it out. So they tend to be very nimble. They would switch their production line really quickly and start making whatever's selling. And that's what happens in China all the time. The only thing that's different at this time is it's happening at an unprecedented scale. There's just so many products and so many factories, and the demand is just, we've never seen these kind of payment terms, factories asking 100% cash up front and transferring all the risk to the buyers. And despite that, there are buyers willing to pay $5 million, $10 million up front in cash. That is the kind of risk that the buyers are taking in this market. And all I would say is, there's kind of touching upon Mike's point, there's a lot of criticism as well of China on one end that, that people are taking advantage of the situation. And the way I look at this is, it's a very fine balancing act. On one end, you want to be 100% compliant and get everything right. And on the other end, you want to make sure that people get the product, because, having a 90%, a mask that is 90% as good as an N95, let's say the KN95 is better than having something that does nothing to you at all. And the challenge for governments have been, how do you find that balance? And I think everyone has been kind of, learning on the go to deal with this situation.
Right. So, what kinds of importers are you seeing, buying these masks? You mentioned a lot of, newbies and people who really don't have any idea of, how to import these kinds of products. But are you also seeing a lot of government organizations, and are factories kind of giving priority to some of these government organizations? Renaud?
So there are government organizations, yes, but they tend to be bound by their usual bureaucratic rules, and they have to set up an RFQ, and they have to do this, and they have to do that, and they have to have payment terms and so on. So basically, either there's somebody in the middle doing the financing and matching things, or it doesn't work. So factories don't really want to work with them, from what we have seen. You have and some governments have set up some RFQs, and in the US it's for very large quantities. So there's a lot of brokers trying to jump on this, trying to get a part of the action. And so it means there's so many people who came on the market and try to do something. Then you have some hospital systems and some of the medical distributors trying to source themselves. They tend to be more professional, but it's highly variable. And then what we see also is a lot of companies starting to buy at least the 3-ply simple masks, because they think, hey, we are in confinement and in lockdown these days, but we're going to open soon and we're going to need something. We're going to need a mask to get started.
Right. So, Mike, I see that you've got some samples with you.
I'll start to model. He's talking 3-ply, so I'll put my 3-ply.
Right.
We also have KN95s. And
Mike, what kinds of buyers are you seeing, on the market for these kinds of products?
I was. Is that to me or?
Yes, to you, Mike. So, what kind of buyers are you seeing?
Yeah, for the buyers, like Renaud said, I mean, I think the governments. I don't have too much direct connection with the governments, honestly. I talk to tons of these agents. I think like that, the governments are putting these bids out and they're saying, hey, who can help us, and they're putting it out to their network. And then I get flooded with emails of the same kind of emails they're like copy pasting it from the government's request, saying, can you give me a quote on this, and then they all say they have this big customer, this big buyer that wants a lot of product. But what's been happening is that worked maybe probably like 5 weeks ago when this was starting, but now nobody seems to really care because everybody says they have a government, or everybody says that they have this huge quantity, but there's a lot of people that are not serious or just grabbing any kind of quotation. And similar to like Renaud, I have talked to some governments agents, and they're not going fast enough. They're not realizing that it's a seller's market. This is right. The buyer doesn't have the power at all right now. So these governments are just not used to having to they're used to people kind of doing whatever it takes to get their order, to get, usually they would be a government buyer, the factory, the agent, the rep, the QC, everybody would just bend over to do business with this company, this buyer. But now the people don't seem to really care, because we don't know, if they're serious, or they want like 10 quotations, they want all these paperwork and all this. So a lot of people are just like tired of dealing with them. So I think, like Renaud said, I think the ones that are really making the deals are these kind of middlemen that are willing to take the risk of the financial risk between the actual factory and the government or the hospital or medical buyer.
Right.
Is what
so when you say financial risk, like what are the payment terms, or are there any payment terms at all now? Is it just like, bring your suitcases of cash and take the masks that we have?
So I think we have to think about, there's two different kinds of deals I'm seeing. There's ones that are normal production, like capacity. So it's almost like oil. I don't really want to bring up oil, but oil, of course, collapsed just yesterday. But you're almost buying excess capacity, which is really just like any kind of manufacturing order you're doing anywhere when you're buying toys or you're buying any product. But it's almost like more like a financial product now. So you buy the next 30 days of mask runs from this factory, because the factory says I can make 1 million masks a month. So you can kind of show them that you'll pay them. Maybe don't pay all up front. Maybe you put a deposit or half, and then you want to lock in this capacity. But of course, everybody wants ready stock. I don't know if that's even what it's really called, or inventory. They don't want to wait for production. They want the stock now. So that's definitely cash. That's like a cash deal, like the factory, or usually that's like a trader. They have stock in China, or maybe they have stock in the US. So this kind of a couple of deals I've seen is, 7-10 day production for masks is normally what I see. Or maybe longer out, or you can get it right up front. But usually if you do a production, I've been able to do like half up front, half to release, in my experience so far for production.
Right. So Ash, what kinds of clients are you seeing looking for these masks? And tell us a little bit about maybe the pricing terms, or is it just mostly cash, or what are the kind of deals that you're doing?
Sure. So I think, like Renaud said, and Mike mentioned as well, we've had a lot of inquiries where people came to us and say, "Hey, I'm representing the New York government," or I'm working for the mayor of so and so state in the US. And a lot of these guys are basically just bidding for tenders. Or what's happening is you have a lot of people who have the cash to finance these transactions, but they have no experience importing from China. We've even heard of certain fund houses being involved and hedge funds being involved, and they're financing a lot of the really big purchases. But what's happening is, these people would come to you, and because most of the governments only want to work on letter of credit terms, and factories are just not open to LC terms. They don't even want to do shipment against shipping documents, so LC is just out of question in this market. So
Right.
These guys are basically financing the transactions. And then you have your traditional importers who've been working with China for a long time. They've been bringing in whatever they sell, and all of a sudden they saw this opportunity and they pivoted, and they're trying to bring in whatever they can. Their orders are smaller. And when I say smaller in this market, like anything below $1 million is a small order, because that's the kind of orders that people are inquiring for. I also have, this one theory that there's a lot of noise in the market, but very little real action, because the average transaction size is really large, but the transaction volume is not so large. And what that does is, when you have these really large transactions, everyone kind of wants a piece of the pie. So people think, hey, if I can get like 0.1% of this transaction, I could make my next 6 months salary. So once you post a moment on WeChat saying, hey, I want masks, you have like 100 people, and then they get activated. And this is like there's a viral effect, and that's what's happening. So you see a lot of conversations happening and stuff, but it's the same guy going to 50 people who go to another 50 people. So these 250 people might be in the market, but there's only one order. And that's the kind of pattern that I see as well.
Right. So guys watching, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. Let me see. Jatin has one question here. How do you identify an N95 mask? Are there any certification norms introduced by the Chinese government to ensure this? So, what exactly is the difference between a KN95 and an N95? And, what are the sort of certifications? Who wants to take this question?
Okay, I'll go. N95 is a standard by NIOSH, National Institute of Safety and Health, I guess, which is a government organization in the US. And the KN95 is a Chinese standard. And there are two standards, one medical, one non-medical, GB standards, the Chinese national quality standards. So in terms of performance, they're actually quite close in terms of bacterial filtration efficiency. They're very, very close. Okay, I'm not going to go into details, but people can just Google this and they can find some documents that compare. It's very close, which is why in the US, the FDA recently said, you know what, N95 or any other country's standard, because Japan has their own standard, Korea has their own standard, the EU has their own standard, FFP2 and so on, equivalent to N95. All of this is good to go for importing in the US, as long as there is a certification from that country, or even just a lab test report. So they really opened the door as well as they could, I guess.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the quality issues when importing these products, because there have been cases of, faulty masks and fake certificates, and this is, of course, a big issue. A lot of countries have, refused mask shipments from China. So, yeah, can you tell us like what's going on in terms of quality, and what are some of the things that people need to be aware of when they are importing these products? Ash, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I think to begin with, I would really spend time doing the due diligence in factories, because a lot of these factories have come online in the last 6 to 8 weeks. And, I think one thing we've all learned is that it can take months or even years for a factory to really master a product. You can go from 0 to 80 pretty quick, but going from 80 to 90 and then going from 90 to 100 is a different ballgame altogether. So there's a lot of uh, newer factories that are in the game. So there are two ways, when you're looking for masks. So firstly, you look at their certifications, whether they're compliant or not. Or do they have proper test reports? Do they have, certification? Do they have like authorized rep in the EU if they're exporting, say, an FFP to the EU? And then with the masks, there are certain things that you can look at a mask and tell, for example, the layers in the mask and stuff like that, but majority of the testing has to be done by a lab. So and that's what's missing, because everything is moving so fast. If you want to do a proper lab test, most labs need like big labs need like 6 to 8 weeks to do the testing. So and that's why most people have been skipping the lab testing, and without that, your best bet is to just go for factories that have been producing this for a while and have the proper certifications. And the challenge is to do that, you need volume. So that's what we've been seeing.
So I don't want to
Right.
promote a
Mike, what about you?
yeah, I want to make him. I'll talk more like layman terms. So I don't want to promote the brand of this, but do you see this civilian on the box? Civilian.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is coming. I'm seeing this more and more in the market. I think if anybody listening is getting into this trading, I think you got to first decide: are you selling to a hospital, or are you selling to a civilian or an end user? Right? I think that's the big first question somebody should ask themselves. Am I selling to a hospital where this is going to be used for nurses or doctors? And if that's the case, that's really, really sensitive, right? You have to be very, very careful about that. You don't want to just be some trader that just jumped into a Facebook group and is helping buy for a hospital, right? So if you're doing hospital or medical, really for these, because that's the most sensitive and most important. We want to take this is first the most important thing is take care of the doctors and the nurses in the hospitals, right? That's what everybody should be prioritizing. And we should really try to make sure those people get these products first, not just about who has cash in the bank, right? But it should really go to those people. But honestly, it's much safer. I feel much safer to do the civilian because it's not as delicate as a medical. So I think that's the first major question you should ask. And then there's this whole thing about ply, P-L-Y. So these masks are like layered, right? They're basically multiple layers of protection with filters and to kind of keep virus or dust or whatever in and out. So one little trick I learned is you could do it with your mouth, but you could put it on, and if you blow with a lighter, if you can blow out the candle, that means it's not a good mask. That means that
Okay.
the airflow going through it is too happening too fast. So maybe these guys are more QC experts than me. I would work with these guys for my QC or somebody else, a professional. I'm not a QC myself, but that's one thing I learned. And the other thing I learned is like a fire test. So you would cut this open, and then you would take out like the middle layer, and then you would try to light it. And there's some tests you can do with burning it to see about the material testing. Those are two quick tests, like a air test and a flame test. So that's some kind of more. I try to make it more the non-technical talk.
Right. So, Renaud, my question to you is, what is the way to conduct due diligence when sourcing these masks to kind of detect risky situations like fake certificates or subpar quality? What are some ways in which people can actually, do due diligence on suppliers and the products that they're sourcing?
Sure. Okay, well, first, as Ash said, the good manufacturer usually leads to good product, or at least lower risk of bad product. So how long have you been in this business? It's now a low proportion of the factories that have been in this business for more than 3 months. It's amazing. But that usually comes with a better understanding of the processes, better, maybe more hygienic conditions. Now most mass factories operate, with totally open windows. Don't even think about a clean room. It's just amazing. So how long have they been doing it? Do they have the proper certificates? So if it's for selling in the USA, are they registered with the FDA? If it's, for example, a three-ply mask and or a K95, it could be also under the right code, because if it's the right code, they have to be pre-approved and it takes longer. If it's the wrong code, like scavenger mask and this kind of stuff, it's a loophole to go faster. So they're just exploiting the loophole to put the products on the market faster, but this is not proper. And same thing for the EU, for example, when they sell respirators, and then it falls under the PPE, Personal Protective Equipment Directive. It's supposed to be CE certified by a notified body within the European Union that's in the right list to be a notified body for the PPE and everything. So you really need exactly to know where to find all these things, but it's all out there in the official text. Okay, so this is the certificates part. Then, if you can do a factory audit, great. But these days you gotta come with a big order and place the order and wire some money before you even let to come to the factory sometimes. I mean, today a client told us we really need to talk to these guys, and we had to pay 20,000 RMB before we could even come and visit the factory. This gives you an idea about the kind of market that we're dealing with. In terms of due diligence, yeah, and then maybe just checking in the government database to see, how much capital, when did they add maybe that specific kind of PPE to their license, to their scope, sorry. And finally, if it's medical product, medical in the sense of China, which means, as Mike said, this is going to be used in hospitals and things like that, and is it written for medical use, then they might well have to have the medical license again for the right scope of product. So a lot of little things to check. It's not very complicated, and everything, all the information is actually out there for people who want to read it.
Right. So there was also this, the Chinese government recently said that if a product or the packaging has the FDA mark, then they're not allowing it to be exported out of China. So what's the deal with that?
It is allowed if they have the proper medical license, seemingly. Okay. There are no rules. There's no way to tell you exactly what the rules are for Chinese customs these days.
Right.
Just to add to that, I don't think there's been any official announcement along those lines. I think what's been happening is a lot of shipments were confiscated because they had the FDA mark without actually having the FDA approval. So people automatically started assuming that you can't actually put the FDA mark at all. But if a supplier has proper FDA certification and they have all the documentation to back it, I see no reason why they would be stopping those shipments.
Right. We also saw these images of hundreds and thousands of boxes open at a customs, at some customs port in China, and they were saying that they're actually checking each and every box of masks. I mean, have you heard of that? Are they actually doing that? Are they checking each and every box that's going out of China?
I have heard that they're checking each and every shipment over the last few days, but I don't think it's humanly possible to check each and every box. I think it's more about, you take, say, 2% of the cartons or 1% of the carton from a shipment, and you look for basic quality signs, whatever you can check, but they're really relying on the documentation And the Chinese government has kind of introduced their own documentation requirements for the factory to be able to export. And it's kind of really interesting because it's created a gap in the market where there are legit factories who are not able to export. Because what happened was, these factories had structured their setup to be export oriented factories, and they had all the certifications. So we are finding factories that have the right certifications for Europe and the US, but they don't have the certification. Say there are certain certifications needed to sell medical products in China, which they never really needed because they were never really selling in China, but now they need to apply for it. So that's actually created a barrier to the goods moving freely. So while the Chinese government has been very proactive after the criticism, the steps that they've taken have not necessarily been effective, but they've actually slowed down the exports quite a lot.
Okay. Let's take a few questions from our viewers here. So Zahir is asking, how safe are the products imported from China to any country? People's mindset would be that it may bring virus along. Who wants to take this question?
I think the big answer is, do they have a choice to get it somewhere else? Is the reality. If you read the different news articles, and other governments, there's unfortunately not other places to go. I think, I mean, there's people talking about making it domestically. Even last year there was talks about buying from other countries or their own countries, but I think the first question is, where else are you going to get this product? And then I guess secondly, of course, you should work with some specialists that have experience with these factories, or hopefully you have some relationships yourself. But I think you don't have a choice. If you want PPE right now, I think it's coming from most likely China.
Right. Ash, do you know if there's any production going on in India, and are there any exports? I don't think there are any exports from India for any of these products, but is there any production going on for local consumption?
Yeah, so no, there's definitely production going on for local consumption. I was actually quite amazed, during this research, we found that there's a lot of Indian manufacturers that are like in the top 15 list of N95 manufacturers, with proper certifications and pretty decent plants, but I just don't think they have the kind of capacity to export at the moment. So my limited understanding is that they're export controlled, so they have to manufacture for domestic needs at the moment. But there are actually some really quality manufacturers there, especially for the N95s and stuff.
Right. So let's see. Akhil is asking, what is the inquiry to order turnout percentage? It looks like there are a lot of inquiries, a lot of people asking for masks, but then maybe the orders are not really confirmed. What are you guys seeing in terms of this? Ash?
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier about there being a lot of noise in the market. So I would say the percentage is definitely pretty low because you need to jump through so many hoops for the order to actually take place. For the first time in our history, we have a situation where we have a lot more clients and cash available, but we don't have enough qualified factories that can serve them. So it's really frustrating because we're like, we want to close this deal. The client's like, hey, I can wire you the money tomorrow, but the factory just doesn't have the right documentation. So we're telling them, just hold on, let us make sure that the documents are right. So so that is the challenge. I think, so then if you do find the factory that has the right certifications, you need to make sure that they can take your order. Then if they can take your order, you need to make sure that they have a delivery time that's acceptable to the client. When they say, hey, you need to wait 6 weeks because, we have a backlog, and most good factories have a backlog. So the clients get put off by that, and they're like, hey, we would rather go and buy stock, without realizing that when they go and buy stock, the risk of the goods not passing customs either in China and the US substantially goes up. And for someone who's not dealing with China and doesn't understand how China works, it can be really hard to communicate that risk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think just a quick, and just to add to that, it also just depends on any sourcing. A lot of people always have inquiries, and they're not serious. So that's why there's LOIs requested now to proof of funds. They want to make sure you're serious. So
Exactly. So this is a question for Mike. My company would like to send a few face masks as a gift to support our end customers, but there is no air shipping channel so far. Is that true? So she's also saying corporate shipping channels stop accepting one piece of face mask as a gift. Have you heard of that?
I mean, even people using DHL or these, less than the size of the shipment kept decreasing. I think what people are doing and what we've been doing is doing our cargo. So you'd have to get into like cargo, not really working with these normal carriers like a private airplane that basically consolidates the shipments and sends it to that country and then breaks it up and ships it out from that country. But
Right.
it is definitely getting more and more difficult to send, whether it's even one piece. Actually, it's almost harder to send a lot of pieces than one piece, I think, right now. So it's getting harder for everybody. But I think basically what you want to look for is cargo shipments, where like private planes will take your flight, you won't book it yourself for your one piece, but you want to get on like a cargo shipment is what I would suggest.
Right. So what about the prices? Ethan is asking over here, do you see any price control on these masks? They're outrageously increasing and changing on a 2-day basis. So yeah, let's talk about the pricing that you're seeing, because even previously when there was a lockdown in China and we were trying to source masks from India to send to China, it was the same situation over there. Prices were very volatile and they were really, really high. So what are you seeing in terms of prices? Renaud, do you want to go first?
No, it's just the law of the jungle. I don't know how to say it otherwise. It's just, I have my entire week booked, and then I have a lot of other people competing, and it's raise the price. And then I go, week by week, or sometimes, every 2 days. Sometimes they will update. Now, update is maybe the wrong word, because they might update you 1, 2, 3 times. If they don't see a very nice potential in you, they just stop responding. That's the situation. A lot of a lot of clients that we work with tell us, I've asked them a few times now. They don't even want to tell me anything until I have sent an order and money.
Right. So how high are the prices? I mean, are they double, triple, in general? Like the normal.
It really depends. Some of them are extremely hot, like N95, because, for example, Stanford Hospital in the US is going to use the best, and they don't care if it costs them a few more dollars, right? And then you have maybe the basic three-ply masks that are more much more stable, relatively, right?
Sure.
Right. Mike, what about you? Any?
Yeah, I think I think we break into 3 categories generally. There's the 3-ply, like these blue, kind of like these are the cheapest and the most widely used. This is probably what you should use as a civilian. This is from China right now. I think it's so hard to give a price like on a live webinar, but like it's in the 30 cents range. I think low to mid 30 cents right now from China for a production run. And then there's the KN95, which is the Chinese or maybe European standard, as Renaud mentioned. This is around $1.20s, 30s, 40s, depends on what brand or quality, maybe $1.20 to $1.50 or 70, 80. And then the N95 is like the gold standard. Everybody just loves N95. It just means high quality. It's kind of like it's become like the Rolodex or the cool. But there's not just the type. There's 3M, of course, and there's these other name brands. So that's around $4 or $5, I think right now. Maybe lower, depends on the brand again. And I think that's usually with production compared to from China.
Right.
I hope my internet's okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, how much higher are these prices compared to regular prices, non-coronavirus prices?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was getting in this. I'm also newer to this, but I think at least it's at least 3 times more than it used to be, or probably even less. I think it's at least triple, probably probably even less, right? Renault's going less, right? I think it was even less than
5 to
that.
15 times, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say about 15, 20 times at least. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean,
That's
just to give you an idea of the main raw material that goes into this, which is like melt blown fabric. So in normal times, that costs about 10,000 yuan per ton. The current price as of this week is 480,000 yuan per ton. So that's 48 times.
Oh my God.
And yeah. So you can, that should give you some idea. And the challenge that, the reason why prices have continued to go up is because the machinery used to make, especially these more complex masks and stuff, the machinery used to make the melt blown fabric to the quality that's required for the N95s and stuff can take about 8 months to make. So it's a lot of manufacturers in Europe making those machines, and they've been telling that Chinese manufacturers have been approaching them, but they have like 8-month lead time on a machine. So it's very hard to ramp up production of the quality masks. And that's why, all these newer factories that have come up, they're making the 3-plies, or in some cases the KN95s and stuff. But the little detail that you need that you will find in a 3M, N95 is still lacking in a lot of the KN95s, for example. And that's why, we're talking about, it's very easy to match it 90-95%, but to go from 95 to 100, that's hard for most suppliers in this time frame.
Right. Let's see. Simple test suggestions by Mike is appreciated from a layman's point of view. Blowing on a candle sounds interesting test. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope I was right about that, but I think it's just test. The whole point is you don't want airflow or easy to go through the. Because that's what the mask is doing, right? It's protecting. Another one would be how much it seals around how tightly it fits, on your. And then if it's really catching, if it's really trying to cover all of your, the nose and the clips, and that would be another one, is just how much does it really cover your face.
This one is a bit tricky.
I don't know if there's the valves, the valves, you see those on some of it.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard about that, is it's almost like the selfish mask, because it's protecting you, not others. Where most of these masks, the point of most of the other masks is not really about protecting yourself. It's about protecting you, spreading it to others. I think that's something people need to keep in mind. You've seen these videos of foreigners in China that don't wear masks, and I saw some video like, they don't want to wear a mask, and the Chinese police we're reprimanding them. But it's not just about yourself, it's about others. It's something else to keep in mind.
Right. So of course, masks are one type of medical product, right, that's being produced and exported in high volume from China. But what about some of the other products? So there are, things like face shields or body suits, ventilators. There's really high demand for ventilators as well. So what are you seeing for some of these other products? Somebody asked me for gloves recently. So what can you tell us about these other products in terms of the supply, the types of suppliers that there are? Any insights? Ash, do you want to go first?
Sure. So with isolation gowns and gloves, there's a similar shortage. The prices are going up. The market dynamics are very similar. Ventilators are a really interesting one because we spent a lot of time on that, and there's just so much fraud going on in that market that you have to be extremely careful, because there's only about 28 factories in China that actually, I'm talking about ICU ventilators. You also have like other ventilators that are a bit easier to make. But those factories have, in most cases, been taken over by the government, so they can only supply to the government, or they're just not taking orders. They have huge backlogs. So what's been happening is there's a lot of middlemen in the market that are claiming that they have ventilator stock, claiming they have 1,000 units, 2,000 units. And the prices that they're asking for, so normal ventilator, ICU ventilator, will cost you about $10,000-$12,000, and these guys have been asking you for $45,000 to $50,000. But where it gets really tricky is, they want you to, firstly, obviously, they want the documentation. Sometimes they'll ask you for a letter from the government or a letter from a hospital, and then they want proof of funds. But despite, we've even been through that process, no one can really send you proof of stock. And again, because of the high margins involved, everyone and their uncle are kind of selling ventilators. We found I mean, I have friends on my WeChat that are fairly reliable and they know the market and they've been promoting ventilators, but in reality, they're selling something that even they haven't seen. And so we finally, as we got deeper into this, we realized there's a lot of fraud in this market. Very few people who actually have stock, and people asking 50% upfront and then disappearing, or all kinds of scams. So this is one market where there's been a lot of government to government transactions because the government has taken over the bigger factories. But for someone who is not in the industry, I wouldn't even get into this because it's a very, very dangerous market at the moment, and there's almost no supply available for the general public.
Totally.
Okay. What about you, Mike? Non-mask products.
Yeah.
What are you kind of seeing?
I try to. I don't want to promote. I don't think there's a brand on this. This is the infrared thermometer. So I see somebody asking in the chat about this. I do think this is probably a useful one for long term. I mean, I have this feel. Like we talked about. I think this is going to change society everywhere. People are going to be going to places and restaurants, hotels will be checking temperature. I don't even know if that really checks if I have virus or not. I guess if I have a high temperature, it must mean maybe I have the virus. But I do think this will be something that will be useful. We're doing some of this now. It's still new. Like in the U.S., people still are not. I just talked to my parents before this call. They're still saying, "Oh, we see people wearing masks outside." I think the Western society still hasn't adapted to this new normal, but I think it's going to be a new normal. The other kind of product is I saw the Philippines Airlines did their own designed hazmat airline clothing, and it has their logo on it. So I think there's going to be opportunity for all these businesses to have uniforms that are going to be more medical supply uniform suits. For airlines, for anybody dealing with public, and they're not going to want the standard blue one, right? That standard same one. The other is test kits. I don't know. I don't want to. A lot of people want to buy test kits because it's but it's a really dangerous one. I haven't gotten involved in test kits because I don't know it enough. But if we can find a test kit that's that we would love to help people get test kits, but that's a really dangerous one. I don't know if I want to be involved with test kits, but those are some of the ones I'm seeing.
Right. Renaud, what about you?
Test kits. Yeah, test kits are not allowed to be sold except to governments. So if you find test kits to buy, it's a high risk of getting scammed or something like that. Totally a very dangerous product. Yeah, I mean, apart from that, I'm just going to run down a few other popular ones. Yeah, thermometers, as Mike said, it's going to be like the airport security. Everybody feels better because they're checking temperature, so this is going to go everywhere. Yes, it's a bit scary still, but this is a very hot item. Typically low lead times, but 10,000 pieces minimum order quantity typically. And when you check them with a calibrated thermometer, a lot of them are just baby thermometers put together into this kind of nice, nice looking thermometers. Look a little bit more serious, but a lot of low quality stuff, very low accuracy, within 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, which is amazing. Face masks and goggles, typically much lower MOQ, easier to produce in large quantity. The hand sanitizer, here again, sometimes it's supposed to be between 60 and 80% alcohol, right? So otherwise, it's not very effective against the virus. More specifically, bacteria that might carry the virus. But then some of them have ethanol, so some of them are way too diluted. So again, with a simple gauge that checks the alcohol content, this is not a very complicated test. And some other gloves. One of you mentioned gloves. Nitride gloves are very, very hot, much more than venom gloves. And then there's a lot of other things, isolation gowns and shoe covers and medical caps and things like that. But yeah, all of these are really the very hot item that a lot of people are rushing into.
Right. So we have a couple of questions here. Ankit is asking, could you please give insight about infrared thermometer demand and how important it would be for different industries once the lockdown opens? I think this is what you were just referring to over here. And I think Mike and Ash also referred to this. So these are some product categories that might have a lot of demand once lockdown opens
I
up.
think,
And Mike, maybe you might be able to share some, you know, share some insights on
yeah,
what you're seeing in China, because in China the lockdown has
yeah,
been lifted, and what kinds of products are
yeah.
really
So I think it depends on your government. I think the policies in your local country. So you should just watch closely if you have government relations. I think they're all. I think all governments around the world are deciding when they lift the lockdown, what's the new normal, what's the policy, what tests, what. So in China, I have to get a WeChat mini app, and I show if I'm green or red
right.
based on. I don't even know how it knows, but they track you. So when you go into a taxi now, you have to scan a QR code in the taxi to report to the database where you are and who you're engaging with. You
Mm,
go into a mall, you have to scan the QR code. I'm American. I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to go around the check-in, and they're like, "Go get." They will chase you down and make you scan, and they want you to show your phone that you actually fully scanned. Because I'll try to scan, and then I'll try to not let it fully, finish. So I try to hit back and leave because I don't want to report my location. But so of course, China is the most extreme. They had cameras everywhere already, but I guess you got to decide in your local country or the market you're selling and what their requirements will be. But yeah, I think there's going to be these infrareds everywhere. I think it's almost going to be like the restaurant will be like high class or safe if they have these things. Maybe it's not even required by the government, but that local business wants to show their customers that they take health and safety really seriously. So that could be another way you could position it.
right. Yeah, no, CISA also has a similar question, products after lockdown. Um, let me see if I have any more questions here. Okay, face shields. So are they safe? As a lot of manufacturers talk about face shields in India, where you can wear your spectacles comfortably and it keeps protected. So I'm not sure what your question is, Vasan, over here. Are you asking if face shields are
So
safe?
I
So
I think
in
maybe
terms,
it's just a general question.
yeah, it looks like it.
Maybe actually, I think usually you still need the mask. I still think you need a mask and the shield. I don't think the shield doesn't replace the mask.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like a
And
double protection.
yeah. And are these shields also being manufactured in, in other countries? Do you know, Ash? Are they being manufactured in India, for example?
I haven't looked into that at all. We kind of tend to stick to China as much as possible because we know the landscape and we
Right.
know we have the QC processes down. But we haven't looked into this product even in China, because what we found, once we got into this, was better to focus on a few products and really master them, because every product has its own compliance requirements and its own standards and stuff. Then try to do a little bit of everything. That is, I think, a risky approach in this market.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
I think he clarified in the chat if they're safe or not. I think just to add that.
Okay. Yeah. Are they safe? Yeah, that's what he's saying.
well, it depends
Right.
what you mean by safe. I mean, safe
Yeah.
for you so that you don't, after touching things with your hand, touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Yes, it does help.
Yeah.
Safe in terms of just wearing this, and then if you come in close proximity with someone who's infected, protect you. No, but does it add a little bit of protection? Yeah, but very hard to quantify.
Right.
I think to make sure everybody understands, a lot of this is to protect you from touching your nose or mouth, the mask
Mm,
or these things. We touch there's a funny video of like government officials saying, "Don't touch your mouth," and then they're like, she licks her finger to flip the page on her notes. There was a
Yes.
video. I think Regla saw that. So we have this. Humans have this natural habit to touch our nose, our mouth, but that's you touch something with your hand. So that's why they say wash your hands a lot, because you're naturally touching your face, your eye, even. That's how the virus can enter you. You touch it with your hand and then you touch your mouth. So the shield is like another protection of you touching your face. I think that's
Right.
probably the main purpose of it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Ash, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if you're looking to develop a new product, there's definitely scope for a product that gives you like a mini shock every time you move your hand up to your face. So, if it's a face shield with a shock, then that could be pretty effective.
Yeah.
I've heard of somebody working on something like that. Yeah.
Vibration, maybe.
Yeah. So Atul is asking, are you also seeing inquiries for machines to manufacture masks? Is the price rise and availability as tight as for the masks? Yeah. What about machines to manufacture masks?
Yeah. I could jump in. In the Philippines, I was there, I have a lot of friends in the Philippines, and of course our team. I think a lot of people here have their teams there, and of course it's a lower income location, so they're having trouble getting PPE in locally. So they want to try to get the machines, or they want to try to make it themselves. But I think, I don't know if others on this panel have experience with it, but I think it's really hard to get these machines right now because factories are also buying these. So Chinese factories are buying from the machine factories. So you're also competing with all these new factories in China getting into the mask manufacturing. So I heard it's really hard to get them. I have a couple people that have asked me, but I haven't been able to find any.
And are these mostly manufactured in China itself, or are they coming from Europe and other countries?
I think so.
Yeah. Ash, do you want to add?
I think for the lower end masks, your disposables and stuff, it's easier to get these machines in China. But even then, they are being supplied to the local manufacturers because there's so much demand. There are factories in South China that are making these. But if you're setting up, if you wanted to make N95s, it's really hard to scale up production. I think China's production capacity for N95s is about, I think, 6 million a day or something like that. Or I need to check my notes for that. Yeah, I think it's about 6 million. And it's very hard to scale. It's not changed that much, other than factories have already making it, have been kind of trying to scale their production up. But it's very hard for someone new to come in and kind of set up a production line for an N95. But for disposables and stuff, there are factories in China making the machines.
Yeah. So just to add, so my friend in the Philippines that wants to buy this machine for his market, he says he knows he can't get it now, but he wants to buy it 6 months from now because he thinks he wants to always be able to make them locally. He thinks this is going to be a continuous need, so he's hoping to buy this even later.
Absolutely, a lot of countries are thinking this way. Yes, a lot. But the problem again is the constraint of the raw material. The filtering material, as Ash said, that's really a very big headache.
Right. Awesome. So let's start wrapping things up over here. We also have to give away some prizes. So all of you guys watching, stick around. We're going to be asking you some questions, and the first person to answer the question correctly is going to get some prizes. We're giving away 3 prizes tonight over here. Before we go into that, some closing remarks for you guys about masks. So what's the one piece of advice you have for an importer who's looking to source medical equipment from China in the current environment? Ash, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I would say, prioritize compliance over price, because the compliant factories are going to be 20 to 30% more expensive. So, getting into this market, compliance is a non-negotiable. And, if you have 2 factories that are fully compliant and then you can compare price, that's great. But even if you can find one fully compliant factory, that's already a win, that's willing to serve you. So that's really key.
Right. Mike?
I think do some basic education first. Don't look like a newbie. That goes any time of sourcing. I always try to tell people have some specs or know what you're looking for, but especially now. And I think too is don't really want to get political, but like there's a lot of Western I'll just say tweets coming out that could upset Chinese culture. So don't be so aggressive. I always say Westerners are more direct and aggressive. You realize you're going into a seller's market, so you don't have any negotiating power. So don't try to be aggressive. Don't try to be pushy. Just be respectful and be more like an Asian style person, if that makes sense. Or yeah.
Right. Renaud, how about you?
Simply know where you are in the hierarchy of buyers. If you know you have large volumes, then you can go with a certain strategy. You can try to go directly with, do a lot of the groundwork and work directly with some pretty good A-level manufacturers. Again, compliance over price. If you're not in that case, it's going to be very hard for you to go directly and do these things. You might want to try to either work with someone who already has channels open, or pull up with other people, sort of aggregate capacity, demand. I mean, you need to get to the point where you can really deal directly with these manufacturers. If you cannot, you need to find other ways, but don't try to go around and be desperate. And I mean, in that case, yeah, you would end up buying something, but very, very high risk, very, very high risk. You might get nothing, or you might get substandard products.
Right. That's great advice. Okay, that was a great discussion. We covered so many different aspects. Hopefully, we answered all the questions over here. So let's get into the fun part now. We're going to give away some prizes, and so each of you have some prizes to give away. So I'm going to ask you one by one to explain what the prizes are, and then we'll ask questions. We'll ask one question each, and then the person who responds, who's the first to respond correctly, is going to get the prize. So Mike, why don't you go first and tell us what your prize is today?
Okay, sure. So as I mentioned at the beginning, making a new group buy site to help people, especially of course in this COVID-19 situation, to get the masks or the PPE in a wholesale setting, so you don't have to do these big group big orders yourself. So we do these every week, and I'm going to give away $300 towards a group buy. I think I'll have to put an expiration, but maybe a month. You have a month to use it,
Right.
just to put a date on it. But you could buy 300. That you could buy that without having to spend any extra money. So that could be masks or any product. So then I need to ask a question, or
No, I'll be asking the questions.
okay.
I've got some questions here. Okay, $300 worth of credit on a group buying website, loadpipe.com, right? Okay, Renaud, what's your price?
Yeah, so hopefully you find a factory that you can go and audit, or send a company like ours to audit. So we can do an initial factory evaluation for $200 instead of normal price of $279.
Okay, awesome. Ash, what about you? Let me unmute you here. Ash, what is your offer?
So we have a service called a basic company verification service, which we normally charge $100 for. And then we have an advanced verification as well. So we are offering one free verification for a PPE supplier in China. So if you want to do a basic due diligence check and see if they're legit, and you will get a report that kind of goes into the background and stuff.
Okay, awesome. Great. So let's give away the first prize over here. So this is from Mike, $300 credit. And here comes your question on the screen. So in which year was Global Sources founded? You need to tell me the year over here. Which year was Global Sources founded? And I know some people will be Googling this as well. So maybe this contest is more about who's the fastest Googler. Or maybe you know about this. Let's see. Because a lot of people are very surprised when I tell them when Global Sources was actually founded. Let's see if anybody can get this right. There's going to be a bit of a delay because there's a delay on Facebook while we are streaming, so we should be getting in a couple of seconds over here. So let's just give it some time. 1959. No, that's not correct. 2005. No, that's not correct. 1995. Not even close. Patricia, you got it. Yes, 1971. That
Awesome.
is right.
Congrats,
Awesome.
Patricia.
Congratulations,
Great,
Patricia.
great. Congrats.
Great. I'm just going to take note of your name here, Patricia. That is really good. Good answer. And she was the first to answer correctly. Awesome. Okay, so
great.
let's
Get you set
yes,
up
so
with that.
Patricia, you can get in touch with me, and then I will connect you to Mike, and we'll get your offer sorted
Okay.
out. All right, so let's go for the second question. So this is now for Renaud's prize, which is so Renaud, you said your factory audit
Right.
for $279, and you're doing it for $200, right? Okay, so here comes the question on your screen. What does O2O stand for? Let's see who can get this. This is one of Global Source's USPs, actually, and we've been promoting this in all of our marketing for a few years. So any Global Sources fan should actually know this. What does O2O stand for? This is one of Global Source's USPs. Oxygen. Somebody said oxygen. No. No, it's not oxygen. It's related to, well, I don't want to say related to sourcing, but definitely related to yes, online to offline. We've got a winner here, Ankit Sarogi. Ankit Sarogi says online to offline. That's right. So, oh wait, that's Catherine. No, Ankit was the first one to reply. Let me just say, yes, Ankit was the first to reply. So I'm gonna take note of your name here, Ankit Saraogi. And so, Ankit, if you can, send an email, or sorry, just reach out to me on Facebook, or maybe I will reach out to you. That'd be easier. And then, I will connect you to Renaud for the prize. Okay, so let's go for the third one, and this is for Ash's offer. Okay, let's see if anybody can get this. So here comes the third question. In which year was the first Global Sources Summit held? Let's see if I know some of you over here, Renaud and Ash. I think you guys know this because you're probably one of the speakers at maybe Mike. You were one of the speakers at the very first summit, right?
I remember the day.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's see who can get this. I feel like we're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something, asking questions. All right, let's see who gets 2000. No, 1985, 2016. Yes, you are right. Who gave this answer? Lisa Tagum. You are right. 2016 is the correct answer. April 2016. That was the first time that we held Global Sources Summit, which is a 3-day conference that we host in conjunction with the Global Sources trade shows. So let me take note of your name over here, Lisa. Congratulations. And I will connect you to Ash to claim your offer. All right. Thank you so much, guys. This has been so much. This has been very educational. And I'm sure all of you watching, you found a lot of value. And if you are considering sourcing, masks, just be very cautious. There's a lot of volatility in the market right now. So just be careful out there. Okay, thank you so much, Ash, Mike, and Renaud, for your time. Before we go, can you tell people where they can find more information about you?
Sure.
Who starts?
Ash, go first.
Okay.
Just because Ash is the first on my screen here.
Yeah, so I can be reached on LinkedIn, Ash Monga, if you just search for Ash Monga. A little bit more active on LinkedIn than Facebook. Or my email is ash@imexsourcingservices.com.
Right. Great. Mike, how about you?
Okay. Tons of stuff, but I guess my blog or podcast, globalfromasia.com, We just put one out today about my transformation. I think this whole thing is transforming my life, and I recommend globalformation.com/transformation. It's an interesting one.
Right.
And then, of course, Mike@globalformation.com. Email.
Okay. Renaud.
And very simple. Where is it? Sophist.com is the website. RA, like Renaud Anjoran, RA@sophist.com is my email address.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, all of you. And thanks a lot, guys, for watching. And I will see you tomorrow morning for the third session of Smart Sourcing Virtual Summit. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.